yeah, in this video we're going to go over how to determine what solution technique to use to solve quadratic equations. It's a nice way to kind of put a capstone at the end of a great, well, either review if you're taking this as an Algebra 2 course or Algebra 1 course, a great way to review all the different techniques for solving equations. So, first things first, if you have ax squared equals a number or ax squared plus c equals a number, in other words, there's no b term, there's no x, there's just an x squared term, then you're going to use, and I'll just give you a picture, the square root, and remember, you need plus or minus the square root. You're going to isolate x and then take the square root. So that's the square root technique. However, if you have ax squared plus bx plus c equals a number, you need to first get it all equal to 0. So I'm not going to write that all again. So first things first, you got to get everything equal to 0. And you can either factor. So you're asking yourself, can I factor it? And if the answer is yes, then do that and use the zero product property, right? Setting each part of the factor equal to 0. If the answer is no, or I don't know if I can factor it, then you're going to use the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula works for all, but it's easier to factor if you can. So again, you don't have to spend hours and hours deciding if you can factor. If you can't determine it within 30 seconds, use the quadratic formula. That's it. Now, within that, there's the completing the square you could use, but I would use this as your basic, well, plan as to decide what technique to use. All right, so now I've given you 3 problems here, and we're going to go over. The instructions will be determine what solution method to use. So on this one here, we notice that we have no b term at all. We have no x value, so we can isolate x squared. So I'm not going to solve it. We're just going over what method we would use. We would use the square root technique where we'd isolate x squared. You'd add 10, divide by 7, and take the square root of x. Now, in number 2, I look at that and maybe we can factor it, maybe we can't. But I say, you know what? I don't want to see if I can factor that or not. So I would use the quadratic formula. Or you can determine whether or not you can factor it. And if it does, factor it. If it doesn't, you're going to use the quadratic formula to solve it. It's already equal to 0, so we're ready to go. This one, first things first, I'm going to rewrite it as x squared plus x minus 72. This is too tempting not to use factoring, right? What numbers multiply to 72 that combine to give you 1? Positive 9 and negative 8. So you could factor that, so we would use the factor method. That's it. This might frustrate you because you might be like, what, you're not going to solve the problems? No. I wanted to go over a drill of recognizing what technique to use. I didn't want to get bogged down in actually solving that out. That's the next video where we're going to just give the directions of solve using any method. Because in the real world, you're not going to be instructed to use a specific tool to solve things. That's going to be up to you to determine what tool to use. I'll see you in the next video where we're going to actually solve some quadratic equations using the best method. See you there.